Be wild, man. I like that shirt.
Bring it in. Give me some love. I'm gonna zoom in on the inappropriate male contact here.
No, I'm just massaging your shoulder.
Today we're kicking off a new series, and it's called Dollars and Cents. Many of us, if we're not careful, will slip into that moment in the celebration, feeling laborious or not a part of worship. And I would dare say that that's one of the most important parts of worship. 1, 2, 3, yes!
Angelo, where did you get that? Where did you get that bass guitar?
I found
Because it looks really familiar to me.
it might be yours.
You know what I like to say is, you have not because you ask not.
Amen.
But you can't have it. I will say this though, Angelo. I'll trade you basses. In this case, I am exercising the you have not because you ask not principle. Because Angelo's bass is nicer than my bass.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
1, 2.
I was buried beneath my shame. Come on, if you know it, sing it.
I feel it breaking out, I can't let go. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out, I can't let go. Echo in my soul. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing.
If the stars were made to worship so loud, if the mountains bow in reverence so loud, if the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. 'Cause if everything exists to lift you high, oh, so will I. This well is empty, so will I.
Angelo, that was embarrassing.
Dude, I'm with you.
For me. I hit so many wrong notes on Thursday. And my fingers.
You Nick Jonas did?
Everyone in How'd you do?
Man, I played like I never played before. I don't know.
But you know what? If you screw up in worship, you're among good company. Okay?
Do you trust these 6 people? What's amazing about this is her dad's up in here. Do you trust your dad?
1, 2, 3, trust fall! Woo!
It's time for a tech tip with Dave in the Sunday vlog, and Dave and I have actually been talking about this. We're going to make this a regular series of worship tutorials. We've actually marked out time in our week where we're going to come together, and Dave and I are going to make some videos for you about production and how to raise that level of excellence for you and for your team members, things you can share with them. But what are we talking about today, Dave?
So I'm going to talk to you about how we set up a vocal channel and what our channel strip looks like, what our chain looks like, and this is not the be-all end-all. This is not a standard. This is not something you have to do. This is just the way we do it, and there's a couple reasons for that. So the first step in a great vocal chain on any board is obviously getting your preamp right, and so it's super important to make sure that you got your levels right somewhere around -12 dB on a digital console, and that's going to make sure that all your gain, all your staging is set in a good place right off the bat. Now on our vocal channel, you'll notice we actually have these, we have a compressor, we have a gate, and we have EQ. That's pretty standard on any digital console, but these on buttons are off. And that's because we're actually not using that compressor, that gate, or the EQ on our vocal channel. The reason for that is we do all of our processing in Waves with plugins, and these are some really powerful tools that allow us to create an entire vocal channel. Now, a lot of people do use Waves, but they also still use the onboard compression and EQ. We don't do that, and the reason for that is that we want to be able to save someone's channel preset, a vocalist channel preset, and we want to be able to load that back on anytime they're serving. And so all we have to do is just click load, and it loads Brian Wall's vocal preset. He's ready to go. He's got a great vocal preset.
Push those highs, Dave.
Exactly. And so, so what we're doing is we're going from the preamp, and then we are inserting, we're coming out of the board on that channel only, and we're inserting into waves. And so let's take a look at our waves channel setup for our vocals. So the first thing that I do, again, this is not industry standard, is I put a gate on the vocal. And I really want to try to mitigate any background noise that the mic's picking up, because what I really want is the vocal. I don't want all that noise. It just kind of muddies things up. And so to do that, I'm using a plugin called PSE. This is called Primary Source Expander, and it's an amazing gate. It works really easily. It doesn't take a lot to get it dialed in. And we'll probably go over some of these plugins in more depth in some future videos, but for now I'm just going to kind of run through the rest of the vocal chain. So once we have our gate in place and we are left with mostly vocal and not all that background noise, then I'm processing into Waves Tune. Oh my goodness, we're using AutoTune.
AutoTune is
doing
fake.
We believe that, you know, we want to put our best foot we possibly can forward. AutoTune is not something that just all of a sudden makes a poor vocal great. It's something that makes a great vocal have a little extra icing on the cake. So this is Fuller's vocal.
You know what they say, Dave? They say that if you try to polish a turd, what you end up with is
a polished
turd.
That's right.
Just remember, we're talking about AutoTune, Pastor.
All I know is I walked by and I heard polished turd.
That's right.
Now, I don't know. Like, normally I believe in these guys, and normally they're above board, but I don't know about this polished.
What we're saying is,
turd.
if your lead vocalist's vocal sounds like a turd, and you try and put AutoTune on it,
It's a polished turd.
Still going to sound like a turd.
Because a turd is a turd.
That's right.
Turd is a turd is a turd.
You know, my old coach used to tell me, what do you do with a turd? You flush it.
That's right.
Anyway, whoever you are,
I really enjoy where this segment is going right now.
We're so thrilled. I love the fact that
yes.
through worship tutorials, you
Pastor.
get to experience church here and get to experience
Yeah.
these guys. We don't have it all figured out. We surely are not perfect, but we love sharing what we're doing with you folks. And remember, a turd is a turd.
That's right.
AutoTune just lets us take that vocal to the next level and just really make sure it's in pocket. And you'll see I'm not doing much correction. The correction's only at about 40%. Now, once we go through the whole chain, I'll go over the reasons that we're doing these plugins in this particular order. But next we have our EQ, and this is actually a dynamic EQ. It gives me a RTA, a real-time analyzer, and it shows me all the frequencies that are going on through here. I'm not using this to do any kind of dynamic EQing at this point in the chain, but I do have another F6 later in the chain that's doing more EQing dynamically, and we'll get to that in a minute. This is pretty standard vocal EQ. So we've got a high pass going. We're getting rid of all of that low end junk, and we're letting the highs pass. Then we're also cutting a little bit of 250 on Fuller's vocal here. And then we've got some general low shelving so that we get rid of a lot of that muddiness on the low end. And then we're cutting some mid-range just to get rid of some of the harshness. Next, we have my favorite de-esser. And a de-esser is just to get rid of the S's. It's just to take out that sibilance when somebody has a lot of that.
De-esser is actually a dynamic EQ as well.
A de-esser is a dynamic EQ, Brian. And so all it's doing is dynamically turning down the S's when it senses that.
You don't want that.
You don't want that. And so this plugin called Sibilance Live is a plugin that not a lot of people know about, but it is an amazing de-esser and really lets you hone in on those S's so you can get rid of them without getting rid of the good stuff on the top end, that clarity that you actually want. Now, next we're getting into compression. So here is a plugin that looks like it's from the 1980s.
I think it might be.
Might be.
Is this our compressor?
This is RVox.
And RVox is like a early 2000s plugin from them.
But it looks like
It's one of their all-time greats, though.
We're just kind of shaving off the elements of the vocal that are the loudest, and so we're not looking for a whole lot of gain reduction in here. It's just a little bit of a shave. And what we're doing is we are this under the hood is actually a higher ratio compressor. Again, we'll get into what that means and some more compression techniques in some later videos, but it's just kind of giving it a haircut, just shaving the very top end of the vocal when it gets really loud off. And we always want to do higher ratio compression first on a vocal in the chain. Then we're going to do our lower ratio stuff. So under that I have another compressor.
Ooh, this is a good one.
This is the SSL bus compressor, and this is a classic SSL. This is the same one they have on the boards, which sound absolutely amazing. This is a very punchy compressor, so I'm using this on Fuller's vocal because I really want his vocal to kind of cut through the mix. There are other vocals where I might use a different type of compressor, and we'll get into all the different types of compressors and how you would use them in different scenarios on different vocals and their characteristics. But I would say the SSL G-Comp is one of the ones that I use most. Also, in place of this, for example, on LA's vocal, I'm using a CLA 2A.
Yeah,
on LA.
Yes.
On LA, I'm using the CLA.
That is also a very classic compressor.
And this
the
compressor
LA2A.
is a little bit more smooth. It's a little more dark, so it really kind of brings in more of the mid-range and kind of lows a little bit more.
I think a lot of people don't realize compressors affect
They do.
EQ.
Yeah.
That's not something for today's episode, though.
They affect tonal quality. So when you drop this on, you will immediately start to notice a little bit of different tonal quality. And so what we want to do is we really, in the same way we're just getting a couple dB of gain reduction on the RVox before this, we want to start to get maybe 3 to 4 to 5 dB of gain reduction when people get super loud, and that's going to really kind of glue the vocal together and smooth things out. And right here, what's cool is on this meter you can see easily the amount of gain reduction that you're getting. Then to end it, we have another F6, and you'll see this looks like it's not doing anything. It looks like it's totally flat, but it's not. So these frequencies here are actually dynamically EQing. So if I had audio running through here, you would see that the vocal is being pulled down in these frequencies when those specific frequencies get too loud. So a lot of times you've probably noticed that there are vocals that sound really good and very smooth until they sing that certain note. They hit that note and it's like glass could break in the room.
Yeah.
And so dynamic EQs and multiband EQ and compression is a great way to really take down those harsh frequencies at the right time without affecting them in the times when there's good notes that aren't that harsh.
Yeah, and vocalists, when they go from head voice to chest voice, they'll sound different.
Absolutely.
The EQ of their voice will change.
Yeah. It really does, yeah.
The voice is an extremely dynamic instrument. Yeah.
It is, and it's hard to tame. Again, this is just a very quick overview of the way that we set up our vocal chain in Waves. This is not by any means something that you have to do, but it's a great place to start.
Okay, so basically what we've talked about is EQ and compression, because all those, AutoTune is in there, but EQ and compression are your main tools to shape the tone of literally every single instrument, including vocals that you go into. Now, there's another big part of vocals that you didn't talk about here: the wet effects, the reverbs, and the delays.
Very important part.
And to keep this episode a little short, we're not going to get into that now, but we will cover that maybe next time, and we'll talk about how we run. Do you use Waves plugins for those on vocals?
I do.
Okay, so we'll talk about verb and delay later. If you have any questions for Dave, let us know. And like I said, we're going to start covering live production topics.
Let's do it.
At Worship Tutorials. We have a meeting scheduled for Wednesday to film some stuff. So if you have any questions, anything specifically you want us to cover, let us know in the comments and we'll talk about it. Thanks, Dave.
You got it.